Welcome back to the table, everyone. I'm very excited to bring you Captain C. This came out recently. I know some of you have already seen unboxing videos, and there's a tutorial video, a couple tutorial videos out. And I wanted to do an unboxing too, but I was like, well, you know, people who have looked for an unboxing probably already found the unboxing. So what I wanted to do was dig deeper. At first, I wanted to do a review of the game without having actually played the game or read the rules. And my wife said, that's stupid. Why would you review something that you haven't played or read? And I was like, well, I researched it. And she was like, well, maybe what you're thinking is maybe more of a nice big overview, or like a let's dig in and look at this. So I was like, well, okay, so we won't call it a review. We'll call it a dig in, because I was pretty excited about this, and from the videos I saw and some reading I did, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here, and I wanted to share that. Now, this is brought to you by me, so I purchased this off of a couple videos I saw, and I have to say, after getting it, it's not the game I thought it was. So let's talk about that then. What is Captain C? First of all, it is ship-to-ship combat in the Age of Sail, specifically singular ship-to-ship combat in the Age of Sail. So you're going to have a frigate or similar vessel, and then your opponent will have a frigate as well. And great. Now, this is designed by Mike Nagel, who does other Navy games as well, so this is not his first one. Looks like he's done quite a few through GMT Games. And I'll point that first one out. So here is my first bit of connecting dots. Mike Nagel. So he's really well known for the Flying Colors series, and there's actually several games that go with this as well. And so that was my first experience with him. And he likes to do things that kind of tend to lean towards the simulation side of stuff. I don't need to open this, but this particular game series is more in line with like having a bunch of ships on a side. So it's not singular combat, it's a bunch. So you can do like Trafalgar and the Nile and other big battles. However, he does have, in one of the expansions, like Serpent Sea, I think it was, that there's a dual system. So he does have, for this system, a dual system. It's just in another box. And it does like maybe 2 to 3 vessels. It's not, again, singular combat, so it's more traditional with like some hexes, and you know, you're just moving a few ships instead of a whole bunch. So Mike Nagel is very, very familiar with Age of Sail games, and I was thinking, oh, so he has a system that's for large-scale battles, but made a variant to handle smaller battles. I think what would make sense that he would do would be create a system that's specifically designed around small combat from the beginning. It's just this is singular, so you can really focus in on some details. So Flying Colors, dual system, 1-to-1 ship. So he's got a hierarchy here already. Great. Now, when we look at the game, I've already made some modifications, so I will show you what I've done. So first thing is I got the sticker sheet, so I didn't want to forget to mention you get a sticker sheet. The sticker sheet comes with stickers for the US, British, and French, and these go on blocks. And each block has 16, well, there's 16 stickers. The blocks are double-sided. Now, the blocks, this is an interesting story. In one of the videos that I watched, the blocks come on like these unpainted white plywood, pine, something. And this was actually from the Player's Aid, so you can go check out the Player's Aid unboxing for Captain C, and he explains a little bit how there was a supply chain issue getting wooden blocks, but Legion Games wanted to get the blocks into the game, so they did find someone who could source blocks. They got blocks, and because they were, you know, desperate, I don't know if you want to use desperately, but because they really cared about getting these into the game, they just packaged them in these like big old sandwich bags. So that's how important these were to the game, that they went out of their way to get it. Now again, those blocks come just unpainted white. And I had seen on another unboxing video that someone took the time to paint their blocks. So they did the British in red, made sense. But here's where the color choices went for me, maybe just a little awkward. The game has it where the Americans are blue, okay, you know, fine, and the French are white. Then the gentleman I watched, he went ahead and painted the French blue and left the American white, because that just seems to be traditional. Red, British, blue, French. But I went ahead and left the system the way it was as the game has it laid out, to where the British are red, Americans are blue, and the French are white. So I said okay. And these are maneuvering blocks that you have on your game board when you do certain maneuvers. I guess it's like, in a way, it's like a cost, like how many impulses it takes to complete a maneuver at a wind gauge that you have. And so you put this here, kind of hide the maneuver from your enemy a little bit. But that's a later point. So there's these blocks, and that's what I've done. I went ahead and painted them and stickered them up. And I would recommend that if you have the ability to paint them, I think they look really sharp painted and very thematic, and the paint is sticking to them pretty good, and the stickers are sticking to the paint that's sticking to the wood. So I'm glad I went ahead and painted them. Alright, so we'll just set that here. And then counters. I wanted to talk about counters. I just clipped the counters. Here, let me grab, I can't believe I forgot to grab the counters. Yep, we're not going to edit that. It's just the way we roll. Okay, so there's one counter sheet, and there was about, what was it? I think 16 to a strip. Let me tell you, these are, I don't necessarily want to say it, but I mean, like, they are probably the perfect counters. Some of the most perfect counters I've dealt with. They're not overly thick, so running them through my corner clipper was good. But they're thick enough to hold up to some play. I mean, I don't know anybody who grabs a counter and says, let me bend it. But yeah, these are pretty hefty. So they're great. You know, a person could argue how much bigger do they need to be, but these are going to be used on ship data forms to track things like different types of ammo you have loaded. So again, they probably don't need to be super big. And there's not too many. I mean, you got your British, your French, your Americans, and then some status markers, smoke. There's like a wind one here. So there's really not too many. One counter sheet. And here's what else made them really great. They popped off of that counter sheet so good. That's part of the, I attribute that to the not being too thick, but just about the right size. I just got a game recently where the counters were like really thick, which meant the cutting process didn't cut them super well. And so when you were trying to punch them off of the counter sheet, some of the paper from the counter itself would like kind of tear and rip, and I ended up with one counter where the backside is missing like half of it, and it was like ugh. But these, great. And the other nice thing is these were all connected at the corners. Again, smart decision. I'm not sure whoever said let's have the connector points be at the very middle of the counter and the corners, but these are just fantastic, and there's not a whole lot. So you can clip them up, sort them out, easy enough. One counter tray. Hopefully for expansions we got room for other nationalities down the road. So the counters, wonderful. Ooh, I did want to show this. When I got the box in the mail, had a thank you, and I was trying to lick this and see if that was maybe actually they wrote on it. I can't tell if they actually wrote that or that's just printed on, but it has that shine of they used a permanent marker, or it's just a really nice printing process. But Jody and Randy, thank you. And I think the player aid said Randy owned the company. So kudos, Randy. Good job. Jody, I'm not sure relationship between the two, but great stuff. Here is an ad for some other games. They have a lot. You go to their website. They have so many games in the pipeline. And then there's quite a few games here that I want. In fact, this is my first Legion's Wargame game, and I'm really keen to share more because I'm really happy with this one. Like probably Target for Today, Target for Tonight would be next, or the Super Fortress. I've had interest in Picket Duty for a while. I just don't know why I never really looked into that, but super happy. Then you got some assembly instructions, which came on a little half sheet. Here are the ships, and this really reinforces that this is a ship-to-ship singular combat system. So this had some stickers. I put them on these not quite hexagonal, but kind of, I guess, octagonal shaped items here. So there's one ship. So there's like an American ship, British ship, French ship. So that's all assembled and ready to play. So like this game is ready. I haven't opened the cards yet. I didn't know if I want to sleeve them or how I want to handle the cards, so I just left them here. But essentially these cards are going to be used throughout the game to modify situations. It's not a card-driven game, but like a lot of games, there's these cards that you can play to give yourself bonuses, your opponent penalties, just those extra kind of fog of war things that make real life interesting, you know, like, ooh, maybe I play a card where the hood blows up, you know. No one expected that, but I had the card for it. So here's a big deck of cards. You get dice, sharp looking dice. I have tons and tons of dice, so this goes into the collection, but these are really nice looking, so I'm happy with that. And you got some baggies for sorting your counters, but I went ahead and put them in a counter tray, so that's good. This was also a nice touch. You ended up with an errata sheet, and when I went to Board Game Geek to do some research, I thought, you know, oh, there's already a page. Yeah, you know, you could argue 3/4 of a page of errata. It's not terrible. If you go to the online and look at their digital book, I think there's the living rules. The rulebook has these changes in there already, and I think they have updated player aids that you could print out. So I'll look and see how badly I want to, you know, print things out, or maybe I'll cut this and paste it into the book. We'll see, but it shouldn't be too terrible. I'm just thought that was cool because there are some folks that don't use Board Game Geek, so they might not know that there's files in errata that they could download. This might also be on the Legion Warfare website as well, the singular page of clarifications. But I did see it on Board Game Geek, and when I opened the box, I thought, that's a nice touch. Thanks for putting that in there. Then you have your rules of play. Rules of play, I haven't read it yet, but it's really, you know, it's not that thick of rules. From front page to back, 16 pages. And there is optional rule, cat here, optional rule for multi-ship in case you want to up it. And Mike Nagel, when I was reading some designer notes and things and reading in here, you know, you can, it kind of takes away from the spirit and essence of the game, because one of the primary mechanics in here, what makes this a singular game, is, and I'll go into that just a little bit here. So here's where the stream of consciousness really starts to kick in. So with this game, he's right. When I play some of my other games, which I'll show you where I felt some influences at, if you do single ship versus ship, that can be super boring. No kidding. Like when I was learning the miniatures game Post Captain, I would do some ship versus ship kind of battles, and sometimes those battles would end up being just two ships side by side sailing in the same direction, same speed, because they didn't want to overpower one another, just firing broadsides. And then when one ship started to feel like their broadside was getting weak, they might try to maneuver and get out of that situation. But yeah, there are times I've played Starfleet battles, you know, other Age of Sail games, Sails of Glory. Sometimes it's just ship versus ship can get pretty dull. And one thing that Mike has done to help with that, alleviate some of the fact that yes, we both have, say, 20 movement points, but we're moving in the same direction. He uses a system where it's a relative speed to one another to check for like if you're separating or engaging. And in a singular ship combat, that's a great system that helps eliminate some of that tediousness of moving ships 20 squares or hexes or inches in the same direction parallel to one another and then shooting. If there's only a speed difference of 1, then you really only need to move one ship the difference. You know, if this guy's going 18 and this guy's going 19, let's not move everybody. Let's just move the one guy forward an inch, kind of a system. And to me, that made sense, which is why it's hard to have this in a multiple ship game. So with multiple ship options, he does have some rules in here where the ships then get assigned more traditional movement values in terms of position to one another and how many movement points they have to do stuff. So it then kind of changes the essence of the game, but you do have the option to play multiple ships. So that's something I thought was really cool at first was, oh, he's given some really good consideration to the ship versus ship conundrums. And then the rules, I think, are well spaced, laid out very well. There's lots of pictures in here. So I'm actually pretty excited to just sit down, read, and then start figuring out how to make all of this work. Now, one thing, well, I'll wait till I get to the map. So the rules, there's not much here, but I'm expecting a lot of flavor, and you'll see why I say that here. Here's a playbook, and this has got your scenarios, designer notes here. Now, I read a lot of designer notes from Board Game Geek, but looks like there's quite a bit of designer notes in here. So if you don't go to Board Game Geek, you might not have seen designer notes. But at the beginning here was a nice detailed step-by-step gameplay. And I think, again, I also found this on Board Game Geek, kind of in the rough draft. And then here's the play-by-play, you know, in a nice edited format. And then there's your scenarios. And a person might ask, well, why is there such a focus then on just single ship versus ship? I had to admit, I was not a huge, I'm not a huge scholar of Age of Sail. But I was quite surprised to learn that I would say quite a few battles happened one ship versus one ship, especially in the Americas during like the War of 1812. They had just started really kind of getting their navy together, building frigates. They don't have ship of the line, so they're more like privateers, and they're going out in their singular ship and then trying to find a weaker ship that they could then go out, fight, and capture and take that as a prize and get money for it and whatnot. And so there's a lot there. As you travel around the world, you'll see also, like when America fighting Barbary pirates and stuff like that, there's also a lot of singular ship-to-ship combat. So this was not an uncommon thing. I was not aware. So that was very fascinating to me. So there's a handful of ship versus ship scenarios in here. And one of the things that Mike Nagel set up here to help with like maybe a balancing issue, because that's one of his points, is these fights were never balanced. Like, why would you take your smaller ship and go and attack a bigger ship? Well, you might attack that bigger ship if that bigger ship was wounded or you could tell was in some kind of dire trouble. You take advantage of that. And so to replicate some of them scenarios in those situations, they will have a ship that might have some rigging damage and some other things there already, so that it kind of feels balanced, even though the two ships on paper might be completely different and one is clearly stronger than the other. So you, as maybe the weaker player, need to strategize how to take advantage of that situation or protect yourself. So all very interesting things that he thought through. So this wasn't just kind of just slapped together. In fact, some of the things I was reading was from 8 years ago. So I would say that Mike's been working on this. It's 8 years from when he had play testing, probably thought about it longer than that, a good decade that this game has been in the work for him. And it's really cool to see it out here now and get to put some of those mechanics to work. This is something else that's interesting, since we're here on this page, is those counters, the octagon, work great for a square-based system. Some games I play use hexes for ship movement, which is okay, because then you got your, your in irons, or what do they call it? You're going into the wind, or the wind straight across you, or it's behind you kind of a thing, trying to think of all the directions they have. So there's like running, but it seems like you kind of miss out on that because there's directly behind you, I think that's running, and then there's reaching. But then when it's in front of you, that's not quite in irons. I forget what that one's called. But then when it's straight on, so you have like your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. But when you compare to like a miniatures game, you have virtually an unlimited amount of positions you can be in regards to the wind. Now, those positions have some leeway into how much you can be turned facing the wind before it kicks into one of those other quadrants. But this actually makes sense. If you've ever played Age of Sail, having 8 points with your counter to address wind situations is great. Because see, here you have, if you're in irons coming straight at you, running straight from behind, or reaching if it's blowing at an angle with your ship, or straight across. And this gives you kind of those multiple options for the wind. It's great. It's a great system. So this has a lot of thought put into this. A lot. So I'm very excited about that. Here's another flyer. I'll go ahead and set that there for now. Here's the square map we're talking about. Now, with the square map, this is where we're going to start comparing to some other games here now when we look at some of these other components. So this is a map. It also has some game aid play charts on it. I'm not going to unfold the entire map, but here we have, for example, where you and your opponent will have your impulse tracking for maneuvers based on how you're facing the wind. All right, and that element of surprise comes in here because some of these maneuvers might cost 1 impulse to complete or 2 impulses to complete. So you take your block that matches one of these numbers and have your country flag face your opponent. Now, some people say, well, how do you hide this information? Because if I have my block here, my opponent knows I'm, going to do one of these maneuvers. It's not completely secret. But again, Mike Nagel's thought of that. Well, because traditionally in Age of Sail games, a captain can look at another person's ship and realize, oh, they're running or they're reaching or they're in irons. And so that's what this is. Based on your position relative to the wind, you're going to pick one of these maneuvers and your opponent can see, oh, they have quite a bit of options when they're broad reaching. They can tell that your ship is broad reaching, and so they know you're picking a maneuver from here and they can try to guess what you might do. Okay, that's awesome. I think that's great. I would have liked it though, maybe had these been on a separate play aid, not part of the map. That'd probably be my only thing. So if I ever see these like in a PDF format, I'll probably print them out. I thought about cutting them out, but I was like, yeah, I'll leave them. But I think I would have preferred to see these as a separate play aid. Now here's another thing that I thought was really cool, and that was a system of impulses. So your turn is broken down into 12 impulses, and then based on your maneuvering, like the relative speed to each other, your ship will move at certain impulses that are marked. And then when you are like firing, it takes a certain amount of impulses to reload. So this is a track to, This is a track to track how long it takes you to do things, and when you get to move. Cool, I like that, or at least I thought it was the movement. But anyway, you have impulses. Now I'll tell you though, here's what's cool. The impulses. When you take a turn, break it down into 12 impulses, and as you call out, like impulse 1, here's when certain things happen. It immediately made me think of our good buddy Starfleet Battles. I was like, oh hey, I've worked with an impulse system before. Now this is not Starfleet Battles. This is our good friend Federation Commander, which was like the condensed, simplified version, because Starfleet Battles just went, whew, that's sucker. That's like the advanced squad leader of space combat right now. And this is its simpler friend. But it also breaks turns down into impulses, which dictate when you can move and perform certain actions. So it's like, oh cool. I have seen that system before. Super appreciate it. Much respect. But at least theirs is 12, whereas Starfleet Battles was like 32. or 31. Let me tell you, that gets old after a while, playing with like 8 people, and you got the referee calling out, you know, impulse 4, and everybody has to look at each other. Who's got something on impulse 4? Just takes forever. Okay, so impulse system, some cool things on the map. Now, here was something else. This is what sold me. I love games that have nice, detailed ship data forms, if you will. And this game comes with like 8 double-sided. Oh, here's the player aids. Yeah, this is nice. There's only 2 sides. The player aids, one well written. They look great, and this is it. You get 1 per player. That's awesome. You don't need much more than that, and I've got plenty of games where they give you like 20 player aids to track all kinds of stuff. So this is great. Let's see, and then you got these ship data forms. So this is fantastic. You got a nice silhouette of the ship, and I haven't really examined them, so I don't know if that's just a generic picture. Yeah, it looks like it's a generic picture. Which, okay, one Age of Sail ship looks like an Age of Sail ship. No big deal. But I think, I didn't look at the flags. No, they are slightly different. They are actually different. Oh, cool. Okay, so that's great. The silhouettes are different, and they got the French flags. Okay, I take it back. That's awesome. So you got these 8. They're double-sided, and check it out. You got all these boxes on them to track all your stuff. Your rigging, your cannons, and your cannons have like a forward section and an aft section. You know, port forward, port aft, and starboard forward, starboard aft towards your broadside. You get to track what type of shot you're loading into each one, which is where those counters, because those counters have different ones for your shot. You got counters to mark how you have your crew. So you have like a overall crew total that you track, and then you put markers to indicate what your crew is doing. So if I want a full broadside here, I put my crew marker here. So 8 crew, that leaves 12. I could put 8 more here. So this side here has got guns loaded, but over here maybe not as many because I'm going to run out of crew members. So this is great, and it's all done with cardboard. So that's when my mind started going to different games I've played and why this is cool, what I've seen, and how it compares to other stuff. So, first game, Post Captain Miniatures game, which I've talked about on this channel before. This is what their ship data forms look like. They have the same information, done a little bit differently. So here the sail state is, there's over here in your sail state. Here, this tracks your sails as part of your movement to individually get damaged. So this is very detailed in terms of your sails, and then that's like the rigging is up here. So it has detailed sails tracking, detailed rigging. It also tracks specifically the types of cannons that you have. So 36 pounders, 24 pounders. So this is like an ultra detailed type of game. And it tracks your submarines and your crew, and then as you get damage, you're going to mark off with a pencil or pen or however you have it set up where you get hit, hull integrity, cannon loss, weapon loss. Here, it's done on this page, and it's a little more visual to see, and I'm okay with that too. You know, sometimes if you play really detailed, you've got this, but here, I like this. Like, I like seeing the silhouette of the ship versus this. Very utilitarian, works, great game. Here, lovely to look at, silhouettes, and I can track everything. But I know some people are like, but boy, that's going to be a lot of cardboard. It is, but I tell you what, I'm used to that too. Now here's something also. When tracking your movement, each ship would get like this log here for tracking how they're doing crew assignments. So again, here you could do the math way and complicated simulation way, or you just have your marker and you just put down, hey, who's facing what problem today, and you're moving people around, you're reloading, changing your shot out, your shot types. So I like this. And again, I'm used to this. I'm used to this too. Post Captain is great. This system is so detailed. Again, it's really designed for like 2 to 3 ships per person. I would not want to play really big battles with this. And even though you might say, well, this is simple, you probably could, if you bought another box set to have all the components, play a couple ships per side and track all of this, because I have a game that does exactly that. It has a lot of cardboard, so markers to track everything, and a big kind of ship data to track stuff. And that's Sails of Glory. So I'll show that to you in a second if you're not familiar. But one thing I thought was really cool is there's a forum called The Anchorage, and they do a lot of Sails of Glory support. It's like got a lot of fan support. And there's a gentleman on there that creates, if you find them in the forum and message him, which I did, he created for me, I forget which ones. He had a couple ships that he had made on the forum, and then I asked him to make a couple for some of the starter ships in the box set, and he did. And these are gorgeous. But look, it's Sails of Glory is like the exact same game. You have your ship with a nice layout, and I think that's a generic layout. He's using it because it's a fan made. I mean, he's got to use resources he's got. But you have your ship silhouette, you have where your boxes or circles to track your cannon damage, masts. It also tracks crew. You have spots to mark what kind of shots you've loaded, shots for broadsides, crew down here. So your sail states, all that. It just so reminded me. I said, oh my gosh, I have played this. And not only have I played this with Sails of Glory, but again, for you Starfleet Battles folks, look, I mean, you get ship data cards here too, where you track, look, shields. Not, well, these are shields, these are cannons, right? But like the layout, these are games I have totally played before, and so for me, all of these concepts clicked. It's like, yeah, why wouldn't I play that? And with Sails of Glory, if you want to get into multi-ships, that's a good one too. But it has tons. I would say that Captain C is going to probably work out a little bit better as far as tracking damage and whatnot. There's fewer counters. Sails of Glory, if you've ever seen that, this has got a lot of cardboard you have to track, because one, each ship gets a deck of maneuver cards, which works out good. If you've seen like Wings of Glory, you put your ship based on your wind and your sail speed. Here we go, here's a good example. If you're going fast to slow, you just line up and move your ship according to the pattern there, so you can, it works, it's fine, but you gotta have this deck of cards for each ship. Then you have this is what a ship data form looks like for Sails of Glory. Again, very similar concepts here. You got to track your shot types that you load, your sail state, your crews, and then in here, I don't want to pull them out, but I have them all packed. You have a chart of cardboard that you stick in here, which tracks the hit points and health of the ship. And this game comes with the ability to play 2 ships per side, and it plays all right. But look, there is so much cardboard just to track different types of damage. I've got baggies and baggies stuffed with cardboard. I have this fancy wind gauge to track which way the wind is blowing. That's nice. But it does tend to bog down with the setup and teardown. So even though I am very familiar with cardboard and placing chits to track stuff, this makes it a streamlined system. So thankful for that. Let me tell you, I would say the only thing people might really want to get out of the Sails of Glory is the miniatures. And I'm already thinking how I can play this with miniatures. But yeah, so I haven't played it yet, but that's why I am so excited. This has a lot of elements I'm familiar with and puts them in a package that I think looks fantastic and has a lot of thought put behind it. So no I didn't get to do a review of the game without playing the game, but I hope that gives you some insight into the game and what you're getting when you purchase Captain C. I'm trying to make sure those blocks lay flat. And again, that's Captain C, Mike Nagel from Legion War Games, and I can't recommend it enough. I can't wait to play this for myself. So even though it's not the game I thought it was, it turned out to be the game that I needed. Alright, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the next video.